Yes, welcome back, listeners, to yet another episode of Predator and Prey, a Yocha podcast. I am one of your hosts, Justin the Owl, parentheses F, OWLF, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Ray. How is it going, Ray?
Yeah, good, Justin. Can't wait for this one. We've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah, definitely. And also joined by my other regular co-host, Russell Rasucha. How are you doing, Russell?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to hunt.
The hunt is on.
Hey,
And
Russell,
today we have a very
sorry.
special tribunal episode. Oh, go ahead, Ray. Yeah.
Sorry, Justin. I was about to say, Russell. I'm wondering if you'll be doing many Peter Keys impersonations this episode.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. If only
I'm just gonna sneak a couple in there.
Too late to go home now.
There we go. Well, today we have a very special tribunal episode, and we are joined by a writer, Josh Pruett. Hello, Josh.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the show.
No, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks, gang.
And for those who may not be familiar with Josh's work, we have a little bit of a write-up here. He's a Primetime Emmy and Annie Award-nominated TV writer, author, and storyboard artist, and has contributed to Mystery Science Theater 3000, one of my favorites, Phineas and Ferb, and Disney's Milo Murphy's Law, and recently Hamster and Gretel. And he's the author of several books, a few of which are The Jungle Book, The Strength of the Wolf is the Pack, which was the adaptation of the film from a few years ago, Avatar, The Last Airbender, Legacy of the Fire Nation, Shipwreckers, The Curse of the Cursed Temple of Curses, or We Nearly Died a Lot.
That used to be longer, Justin. It was a lot. And Disney's marketing and editing folks were like, we can't put that title on the cover. So you have
I love that
so
I love that so much. That's fantastic. Also, The Misery Company, Small Horrors, and Short Stories. And also something that I have actually as well. You contributed a short story to the Big Finish range of Doctor Who, Waterworld.
Points.
Which I love. I had that a few months ago, and I was so excited when I connected the dots that you were one of those two.
Oh, I love that. Hey, Big Finish is amazing.
Oh, I love Big Finish. I'm a huge fan of Doctor Who and Big Finish. I love everything they do over there. And I love that story too. So I'm super excited.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And also, you have contributed to a book that we recently covered on the show, Predator, Eyes of the Demon. You contributed this story, Ghost Story, which we all love.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. So, we're very excited to talk with you today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. My pleasure.
And also, just to let everyone know, of course, we are, as always, live streaming. So if you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter and you see this now, we are it's happening right now. So jump on, ask Josh anything you want. And it's a free for all for all your Ucha fans.
That's right.
I actually have a little bit of a special thing here while we're live for Josh.
Yes.
I thought this would be kind of fitting because last few episodes I've had Bob here.
The mascot. Yeah.
Somebody else is going to join us because I think he fits in tangentially to this.
Oh, beautiful!
Nice.
Well played, Russ.
I don't know if he's going to be in the.
I think he fits in really well.
He might just be a cameo because I don't know if I can keep him in the shot.
I think that's appropriate.
Yes. That's great.
The dream I have one day. This is not going to happen, but gents, the dream I have one day is that they do figures of all of our Yautja that's in Eyes of the Demon, right?
Oh, yes.
And mine absolutely looks like that. He probably looks, in my head, he looks like Jason from Friday 7, and more zombie than
I love that.
alive. And
The new blood.
and the helmet's cracked and messed up, and one of his talons is coming out. Like I think that's 100% where my head was.
The dreadlocks have all rotted and fallen off long ago.
He's got receding hairline. It's rough.
I'm getting NECA on the phone right now.
Right.
We need to make this happen. I love that idea. So Josh, tell us about how and what got you into writing in the beginning.
Yeah, great question. I think everyone has, what I found over time is that everyone has their own kind of circuitous path, right? And it usually starts with things we're passionate about, things we're excited about. When I was a kid, I thought I wanted to do concept design. So like there's this movie, The Relic. And it's got a creature.
I remember that in the museum.
There's a creature in it called the Cathoga, and the Cathoga is like 5 or 6 things blended. It's got like beetle, incisors and whatever. It was designed by Crash McCreary, who was a concept designer for Stan Winston Studio. Crash he would end up doing all those amazing designs for Pirates 2. For all those incredible pirates, and they're all zombified and all that. But he also did Jurassic Park, and so my dad used to collect something called Cinefex magazine, and it was a way for me. It's an effects essentially. It was like an official periodical where other effects pros could see what everyone was doing on other shows, right? So there's physical effects and the early days of CG. And so they had this behind the scenes, and I was like, these drawings. I was like, I want to do this. I want to design monsters. And I was also kind of a scared kid. So, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But for me, it was an access point to this stuff that I wouldn't necessarily always go to the theater and watch. And so seeing this stuff and seeing his designs for Jurassic Park, I was like, I want to do that. And because I drew monsters all the time, but I also was writing all the time. So long story short, ended up like Toy Story and Prince of Egypt came out when I was early college. And I was like, oh my God, I could be a story artist. I could do both. I could write and draw. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And like the first short story I ever wrote was called The Massacre of Chris Penny. And it was about a kid who gets killed by the demon in his 6-foot-tall Gumby doll.
Wow.
Nice.
Great. Amazing English teacher, Mrs. Waters. Like, she did not freak out. She was like, wow, this is great. It's like scary and you're expressing yourself. I'm like, yes, I am. I'm not ill. I just have big imagination. And I had visited my dad in New York, and they had this 6-foot-tall Gumby doll in the base of the Empire State Building, like on sale. And I was like, that's amazing. And then my small, afraid brain right away was like, but what if there was a demon inside of it? So that kind of defined a bit of my trajectory.
Okay.
And ended up going to school for storyboarding, got into animation again because I could do both. Ended up at DreamWorks, where I started kind of my career. Worked on Monsters vs. Aliens. That was my first movie. And then from there, it was like, oh, I'm pretty good as a storyboard artist, but I think I'm better as a writer. And so ended up joining Phineas and Ferb in 2011 and kind of stuck really to TV after that point. But then I still storyboard. I did some boards for Mystery Science Theater. And then because Joel Hodgson, the creator, he was really excited about me being there. And I was like, hey, like, do you mind if I write? And he's like, no, great. And so I got, dream come true. If 13-year-old me, ever heard about what ended up happening, he wouldn't believe it. But I got to work on one of my favorite shows ever.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And like, so got to write riffs for Tom and Crow and Jonah and everybody on Beast of Hollow Mountain. And then, kind of what I've discovered over time is that it's the diversification which kind of keeps bread on the table, but also keeps it really interesting. And so I'm constantly in this state where I'm like reaching for these things that I've loved my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, so that's where the Doctor Who piece came.
Mhm.
And part of what, I'd been wanting to work for Big Finish for years. And, I've had these dreams of, essentially doing, this, I'm a Dark Horse kid.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like
beauty.
and I brought these to be
Nice.
obnoxious about, but like, Alien
That's awesome.
freaked me
Yes.
out
Oh yeah,
so
love
much,
those
right?
too.
But these
Yeah.
covers,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Seeing this in the comic shop,
Yeah.
and just being like, well, I could maybe read that and I won't be so scared. And so
Yeah.
all of that was kind of in my DNA. And so as I've been kind of establishing myself, like I did that Avatar book, I did like a pop-up for Dragons, is that I wanted to get to these licensed things that I adored. And I love Avatar. But the idea of like going back to what inspired me when I was a young man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
sorry.
no,
Oh
please.
no, I was about to say that trajectory, like when you were forming, like what you wanted to do and the opportunities you have. I mean, you've just shown it now with your comic book collections, and we're big comic book fans as well. Was that ever on the cards? Was that ever in your purview?
It's
for
a
comic
really
books? 'Cause
it's a
you're
really
storyboarder.
interesting question because
Yeah.
it should have been, because like AVP, the first one was like Randy Stradley and oh gosh, now I'm gonna forget his name.
Something Wood, is that right?
Yes. But yeah,
Oh,
the
Norwood,
original
Norwood.
Phil Norwood,
Yeah,
who was
Norwood, yeah.
actually a storyboard
yeah,
artist,
Norwood.
and Phil Norwood, he did the first 2 issues, and they had another artist came on to do issue 3 because he ended up getting a gig. I think he got a gig on like T2 or The Abyss, something crazy like that.
Wow.
But like that series specifically was hugely formative for me, and
Mhm.
I've always loved comic books. But I think what it came down to be frank, is that all I kept hearing about was like, you can't get work. Like that
Wow.
that it's hard to sustain a career. And so I came up, Image Comics days, right? I was like 13, and following that explosion, seeing what those guys did and how bold, what they did for creators' rights, that continues to this day, right? What a crazy trajectory that is.
Yeah, 30 years later.
Yeah, and the books that Image are publishing now, just extraordinary, right?
Yeah.
It's such a range, beautiful range of material.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But yeah, like I did want to do comics. We my buddies and I, we would go to San Diego, and we did mini comics and ash cans. So I did my own like self-published thing called the Zombie Monologues, and Tom Lennon, who's Officer Dangle from Reno 911, who's also a screenwriter.
Yeah.
So he was rocking the floor at con, and he saw my ash can and picked it up. It had kind of a cool cover. But I had a joke in there, and he laughed out loud at the joke, and he bought my $2 comic. But I was like, trying to do these short stories, trying to do these mini comics with my buddy Richard Pose, just trying to get our work out, right? Because the whole thing is like, you make stuff and you show it to people, make stuff and show it to people. But the idea of kind of getting into film, getting into animation, that seemed to take, the cake on for me. And comics still was just and graphic novels. The irony being, after all this time, like my first graphic novel is coming out in April. It's a spinoff of the Last Kids on Earth series with Max Brollier and artist Jay Cooper. And it's insane, but it's a kind of a funky thing. It's like comics, like kind of got me started, but like it's taken me all this time to get back to it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had a quick question about the Mystery Science Theater days. How many times did you have to watch that movie?
Oh my god, like 6.
6.
like 6 times. And Beast of Hollow Mountain is a rough one.
Yeah.
And like I didn't know it was gonna be a rough one. And when I was watching it, I was just kind of like, no man, it's okay. I can handle it. Like it's cool, whatever you throw at me, man. Like like that was kind of my attitude. But I will say though that like, MST really was integral in kind of the formation of my personality. And so watching it, like I could hear Tom and Crow.
Yeah.
And like even the head writer was like, hey, don't worry about assigning like who says what, but like I couldn't help myself.
Right.
And his thing was, it was really it's about quantity, not quality, because they just wanted a lot of material that they can parse through. And they ended up using like 30 or 40 of my jokes, which was like a dream. But my animation experience kind of taught me that, you build alts. So you'll have a joke and then you pitch one or two others. They call those alts or alternates.
Okay.
And often when we're, working in television, it's like, you're looking at, you have your script and you punch that up with your team and they're all funny, brilliant people. It's just like this, right? It's the four of us working on a script and we're all trying to make it as best as we can. And we're all really smart and we have our own separate life experience. And so then you're punching up that script with new jokes. And so working on that episode, I was pitching a lot of alts. So I would pitch I think they wanted like 500 jokes. And I think I pitched like twice that.
Wow.
And I definitely felt like I wanted to shoot my shot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's okay that it's the worst movie of the season. It's okay, man. I can handle it. I can handle it.
Or I struggle to come up with one joke, let alone, far out close to 1,000. So,
but it was a funny thing of like the training ground was happening and I didn't know it, right? So I was doing all these other things that I didn't know I was going to get that opportunity. But then when it came, I was like, okay, no, I can do this. I can do this.
You were ready. Yeah.
I was ready. I was ready.
Yeah.
Right. And at that point, I had written like, I don't know, 15 episodes of TV, maybe between 15 or 20 episodes of TV between Milo and Sherman and Peabody and Phineas and Ferb, I think, at that point.
Wow.
wow.
Yeah. Well, as a writer myself, I mean, I haven't been published yet, but
you're still writing, man.
I'm writing. In sixth grade, I actually wrote a story for my English teacher that was Predator versus Darth Vader. And
love it.
Phenomenal.
That could happen now.
I have a fanfic alien that I want to get. We're going to talk about it in a minute, but please, Russ, continue.
And I want two things I remember about it is one, even at that early of an age, I had written myself into a corner because I was like, how would the Predator actually fight Darth Vader without just being destroyed? But the other thing is, I remember I put a Post-it note on the front for my teacher that said explicit content before I handed it to her.
Very considerate.
Trigger warnings are important these days. That's
exactly.
responsible writing.
But what kind of advice would you have for an aspiring writer of like any media?
For me, it's make things and show it to people, right? So it's don't try to make something perfect to make it done. So perfection is the enemy of done. So that's a major one is finishing stuff. So if you've got something you're nursing, it's a short story, whatever, like fan fiction counts. I'm just here to tell you. Fan art gets people hired. My Predator story is fan fiction. Like that's like let's not mess around, right? Like that's what this is.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't want to be insulting to anybody, but like the people who are a part of this incredible talented group of people that I can't believe that I'm anywhere near on the back cover. It's like that's what this is about. So divorce yourself from that. It's like what is the I think the Twilight book started out as fan fiction, something like that, or there was something else that was that popular. But like even in real life, in practical terms, it's like you're writing and you're trying to finish things. So I think the other thing is there's a class I teach at the CG Master Academy. The other thing that I talk to my students about is this idea of like finding something with the best ending. Write that one first. I got that from John August, the screenwriter. It was something he put on his blog like 15 or 20 years ago that I just thought was great. And then the other piece of that is, we have a tendency to kind of get super into the weeds in our own mythologies because we've been thinking about these stories for years, right? And, I live kind of in my notes app on my iPhone. And so I'll throw stuff in there all the time. Like, especially when I'm driving, right? When you're driving, walking, you're in the shower, right? Your brain's idle. So you get these ideas and you try to catch them, right?
Yeah.
But that mythology is only as valuable as the character story at the center of it. So if you're writing a story and or you're pitching me a story, right? So this happens all the time. Someone will want to pitch me something. and they're just pitching me backstory.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, that's super cool, but what's happening now? You know, like the story that I like to share is like, you know, when Lucas was working on Star Wars, he was looking at all those pieces, 1974 or so, and he's going, you know what? The most interesting part is this rebellion thing.
Yeah.
Right. And he said it himself, and he's been saying it right since the beginning. Right. So and this is not shade. Here's this guy who had just finished doing American Graffiti. Coppola says, go write something about people. And he's like, all right, you son of a bitch. I'm going to go write something about people. And he writes about himself. He writes about growing up a kid in a small town and racing cars, right? American Graffiti is a really special movie, I think. But he takes that energy and he's like, all right, well, then let me hit one of these other things that I've got cooking. And he looks at all of that where he's got all this mythology and all of this stuff. And he goes, this is probably the best one. Like, this one has lots of highs and lows. And, okay, we got a character. He's a kid, and he's going to get thrown. I think I'm going to go with this one, right? And obviously, those instincts pay dividends. But in the application, I think, to us, and just being writers, people want to tell stories. It's like, use that. Like, look at the stuff you've got and go, all right, what's the best ending? What's a lot of fun? Like what character? For me, the evidence of it is, you know, there's all these procedurals out there, right? So you've got like NCIS and 8 versions of CSI. Largely, and again, no shade. Largely, these are all procedural. So there's going to be, you know, it's the same shape of story, right? The stories aren't identical, but largely the shape of them is. Phineas and Ferb was also a structured show that way.
Yeah.
So we knew the boys would have a this, and Doof is going to have this, and Candace is going to have this problem. But then those are story buckets, and you put the fun stuff in there, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is that my argument is, if you've got a show, Law and Order, that's been on the air for almost 30 years, people are not actually showing up to see that brand new murder. That's the hook. They come back for the characters. Because otherwise the show would get canceled.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
That's like Columbo, you know. It's like the same ending every time, but it's just you want
one more thing every time.
One more thing,
I like how it just equating it to, I guess, you know, Predator, and say the first film, in the sense that things weren't really worked out during that production. Like they were for some parts working on the fly. Like they didn't actually even have the design of the Ucha, the Predator.
No, they didn't.
Stuff like
did they not? Yeah.
No, they didn't. Well, glad they got rid of the first one. But I mean, they had stuff like, you know, they came up with on the fly of the green blood as well. I heard in that the making of. So none of that was actually kind of meditated. And from that, I guess they built the world. And this is just going to your point, Josh, as well. It was focused on the stories and the characters about the squad. But those things came up later. Like they didn't know about the home world for the Predators. They didn't know about, you know, but they had little things like, okay, it's attracted to the heat. And that was it. And so, I mean, that movie, obviously, we've chatted about it, works really well. But it is very character, you know, and story enjoyment, like focused.
And I think there's things about, it's a great observation, Ray, because I think that people forget a lot of things, gentlemen, about that first movie. And in light of Prey, I feel like we have recently had, all of us as fans, lots of discussions about things that people have forgotten about that first film. But I think that like the withholding and the mystique, right? Whether it was intentional or not, it's like all of what we don't know about the Predator is only then expanded by the small details we do have.
Yes.
But like this, I was talking to friends about this recently. I'm thinking about this for years, but it's like the fact that we see his med kit, right? So if we don't know anything about him, anything they do becomes more important. So like the decision for them to use laughter, son of a bitch, you're doing that on purpose, right? That's a choice, right? That's a character choice. It's not a Yautja choice. Right? Like that's what that guy wanted to do, that warrior, that hunter, that day, right? So all of those things become a part of the mystique of that character, but that's not why they did it. They did it for the specificity, right?
Mm-hmm.
This thing is a hunter. It has to heal itself. It has tools, right? So there's this laundry list of things that we now, all these years later, take for granted. But in that movie, the storytelling was in the character of that predator. Obviously, the rest of the cast too. There's lovely stuff. And by the way, like, all love to Jim and John Thomas, who wrote that first draft for that script and helped invent that world and those characters. Like they knew what they were doing on that thing. But all those choices that the filmmaking team and McTiernan and the rest of that team made, it's like, it's that specificity. And so the long way around, Russ, it's like that's what your story should have. You know, that specificity of whatever you're dealing with, whatever the topic or the subject is, and having that strength of character in this monster movie, right? This monster movie, there's so much character in that monster.
Right.
There is. I think that's what makes it such a long-lasting thing.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like, you know, with the Predator, and I would also, it's a phenomenon that I've noticed with the aforementioned Darth Vader, is like, you know exactly what they're feeling, and you can't see their face at all.
Yes.
That's it, man.
True.
It's all in the body language.
It's all in the,
and we project too. Like I
absolutely.
wrote my master's thesis on Carpenter's Halloween. And like in the script, they don't call him Michael Myers; they call him the Shape.
The Shape.
And they're referencing him.
I have
so
always loved that.
It's so great, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Shape.
but they also treat him that way. So he is an abstract, and for the entire movie, we are projecting on him. Obviously, Nick Castle, and there's a couple other stuntmen who worked on that movie. Like there is some design and specificity in those choices. But largely, we're projecting on that. We're projecting menace. He's just standing there. If you change the music to like their necessities, right? It's going to be if you change right? Like that's going to change what we're projecting. But it's like one of the best movie scores of all time,
right?
And it's like, but it's a blank slate. It's a blank slate. And I think the strength of that first Predator is like, it's both. So we don't know what's under that helmet all that time. So we're going, what is that? What's his face look like? And we're getting all these details about their personality.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, we've kind of touched upon it before. Russell talking about Darth Vader and Justin showing the Doctor Who book that you wrote, Josh.
Yeah.
Interesting just to know. I mean, you've shown your comic book fandom as well, but just curious as to what other sort of stuff do you like? Are you an avid like Marvel, DC? Do you still read a lot of Image? What sort of comic books or TV shows are you into at the moment?
Well, I can see that he's into Full Moon Studios.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
So this is the geekiest thing that I've done in the last 6 months.
It makes me so happy.
So on this journey, right, of like figuring out like what has inspired us, right, as young people. I had this revelation over the pandemic when we all were sitting and trying to figure out how to keep ourselves busy. I was remembering watching like Doll Man and Puppet Master and stuff in Las Vegas with family, and remembering these the Full Moon video zones, right?
Yeah.
And the behind the scenes.
Yeah, at the end of the movie.
And like I'm real into like the early days stuff, and particularly the Dave Allen stop motion stuff. And there's a movie coming out that he shot before he passed away, well before his time, called Primevals, a film he directed. And the team at Full Moon they Indiegogo'd a couple of years ago, and they've got Chris Endicott and some other amazing animators who are kind of going to pick up the mantle and finish this movie after all these years.
Oh, that's great.
And so I was getting inspired again, right? But what I realized was, again, as a formative piece of entertainment, it's seeing those behind the scenes for Video Zone and going, oh my God, that's when I was like, I want to do this, right? So that same thing of like watching or looking at Cinefex. So part of it is just trying to get some sort of history for yourself, right? You're like, why do I love all this stuff? Like in my class, I asked students to pick like 25 of their classics, like 5 comics, 5 movies, all this stuff. Because if I tell you, Seven Samurai is amazing, but you haven't seen it, then I have to waste all my energy explaining it to you. But if one of your classics is Terminator 2, cool, then we can get into why that's a great movie, right? And then you get inspired by that. But yeah, this was me going, this was formative for me. Seeing these people with the rod puppets and the stop motion for Dave Allen and the team there, like that was so formative. And him talking about film as comics, straight to video, Charles Band doing that. But so I did this. I had this made special. I had as a iron on.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you answer Ray's question, but
yes.
You just gave me an idea. I want a retelling of Rashomon with Predator. That's
a brilliant idea, man.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, especially under the auspices of like alien sighting, right?
Yeah.
Like I saw this.
Yeah, exactly.
Russ, you should just write that.
Okay. Wow.
If
they do another Predator anthology,
it's a great pitch, man.
Yeah, that's
a great pitch.
Endorsed by Josh Pruett.
100%. It's a great idea. Now we got to execute, though, Russ. That's the thing.
All right.
But to answer your question, sorry, Ray.
Sure.
Yeah, there's like I'm reading the new Predator and Alien stuff. Super dig Philip Kennedy Johnson, who's on Alien and who's on Superman over at DC.
Superman.
Oh yeah,
love that stuff. James Tynion IV, his Nice House on the Lake is, I think, one of the best comics in the last 10 years.
Okay,
it's an amazing book. The Supergirl book that was out last year. Amazing book. So I'm always reading comics.
Yeah, the one getting made into a movie now, right?
Yeah, James.
That's right. Yeah,
it's an extraordinary. It's one of the most beautiful books on Stan's last couple of years. And then I try to keep up in the horror space for novels. I'm Stephen Graham Jones. His sequel to My Heart Is a Chainsaw, Don't Fear the Reaper, just came out. And then I'm also like reading older stuff too. Like I love. The short answer is I'm all over the place, Ray. But I love genre stuff, like always. Nice. And like I love science fiction. Like Doctor Who is like my number one. It's like horror and Doctor Who kind of like.
Okay.
Hence the zombie sailor, right? Or not the zombie sailor, zombie TARDIS.
Zombie TARDIS. Yeah.
One day I'll get to tell that story for Big Finish. One day.
I just wonder because, being a writer, Josh, and I don't know if you have time, but like with these things that you do follow and read, do you ever get the urge to like do a quick little like fanfic, or do a quick little story yourself? Do you get ideas?
I'm always, honestly. One of my first kind of fanfic things, I started doing designs for an alien story where there was a museum dedicated to the Nostromo.
Oh, cool.
And they had aliens, and the idea is that there were these tubes that would come up into the museum, and the aliens were like on display.
Wow.
And then at night, the tubes would go down into like a subterranean area where they had their nest. And they would run freely, and then, of course, everything's going badly. But even as a kid, I had a sense of that irony of like the company and how they would do this thing under the auspices of honoring somebody, and then it would go to hell because it's a lie, right? Because it's fake, right?
Yeah. It's an even more terrifying Jurassic Park.
It for sure is. And I think I drew a Predator Alien mix. I think when I was 12 or 13, like I called it the Predalien.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I've been nursing Doctor Who stories for years and years. And honestly, like same thing with Predator and Alien. Like when I actually sat down to first pitch on this short story, coming full circle, I had like a couple ideas, but like one of the things that hit home for me was like I wanted to write something for us, for the people in this room. Because in my heart of hearts, I went, who's buying this book? Okay, it's people like me, right? So it's super fans who've watched all the movies and love each and every one of them in spite of and because of their flaws. It doesn't matter. like, we can pick it apart and then also reach for the good stuff that we love and hold on to that, right?
Yeah.
Fandom is a buffet, right? And I wanted to write something that was unique, and I went, like if you do the math, it's like Predator is a slasher, and like all the trappings are already there.
Absolutely.
But then kind of the challenge I made for myself was, okay, then it's not just the set pieces, right? So I want the set pieces to be good. I want it to feel like a good slasher, a classic. But I also went, but I want likable characters, like at the core of this thing. Because that, for me, it's like the best Scream movies, the best Fridays, the best Nightmares, the best, they all have the best Halloweens. They all have, people I think don't talk enough about how the strength of the characters in that first film in Halloween. And the work that Deborah Hill did in collaboration with John about creating those ladies, like, so that we love them first.
Right.
So that was one of the challenges I set for myself in writing Ghost Story.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
because sorry.
Go ahead, Ray.
Oh, just a quick one, Josh. So you're talking about slashers and Pred Alien. Have you seen AVP 2?
Oh yes, it's over there.
No, I mean, like, have you seen it?
Have I seen
it's so dark, Anyway, that was my one joke. That was my one joke for the show.
I have to squint.
Sorry,
I have to squint.
Infrared goggles.
I got the night vision on there.
Great bit. Also, if we're going to talk about it, the thing with the kid is one of the most effed up sequences of any Alien or Predator movie. That movie's jumping the mother alien every other scene, but that bit, that was a good bit, man.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, you've blown my mind. I can't
think
of.
Sorry,
oh no!
I was waiting for. I was holding on to that joke for so long. I just had to...
Ray had like one note on his computer. It was like, "Have you seen?"
Well, you were talking about how like the characters matter in the best slashers, and like you talked about the first Halloween. My favorite Friday the 13th is Jason Lives 6. And I think that has a really strong set of characters. I mean, you got Tommy Jarvis, it's like the end of his arc in those movies. And I kind of feel like that kind of shows in Ghost Story because you have these strong characters that most of them don't seem like your typical slasher fodder. They actually have some depth to them. And maybe that's because of the prose media where you can give them more time to breathe.
Definitely.
You get more glimpses into their head I love how you took like the slasher tropes but made them Predator.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to do. And I think, like I said, it's like a lot of it's there, right? So it's like when you're breaking down on the kill side, you're going, oh yeah, I like decapitation and he's cutting people open, and you're like, okay, cool, great. So that's a good sentence, but I need to kind of take it further, right? So for me, then it was about like, okay, I'm going to have a final girl, but I'm going to twist it. And I'm going to make her self-aware in a Scream way, but like, give, spoiler warning, but like give her a twist where it's like, no, she does understand guns. Yeah. She does have experience, right? So it's not, she's not a complete innocent in this situation.
I loved that twist because like, I grew up, I'm from Kentucky. So like my dad was a big hunter, but I never had any desire in that whatsoever, but I could probably, defend myself if I needed to. And I think that lends to that. Probably why I kind of projected onto that character a little bit.
100%, man. I have a dear friend who's also a screenwriter. Her dad, taught her actual gun safety because there were guns in the house. Yeah. And, the responsible gun owners know what those are. Right. And so I thought it'd be good to kind of show different sides of that argument. Like, here's someone who just chooses that it's not fun for them, but that doesn't mean they don't respect its power. And that doesn't mean that they don't understand what it is to point a gun at somebody.
Right.
Right.
And on the flip side of that, too, one of the more memorable parts, at least to me in the story, was the scene when Darpan and Julie are fumbling with the gun,
Yeah.
and the recoil comes back and shatters Darpin's face. Like,
Oh my god!
I mean, I love that because I mean that's not something that you really think about when you've got a gun like that, and in the heat of the moment you're like
Yeah.
fumbling to shoot at something. You don't realize, oh well, shit, somebody might be right behind me.
Totally.
That moment is the billboard for it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
He was having a great evening,
Yeah.
and then things went south pretty quick. I mean, it's one of those things where you're writing it and you're going like, oh, what's the worst thing that could happen here?
Yeah,
It's like I knew the other guy, the good old boy, was going to show up.
Yeah.
But like how it was all going to roll out, I wasn't 100%. And it was like in those moments, those heated moments, where you're like trying to like protect yourself, defend yourself. Like, excuse me, like he wasn't going to have a shot at this at all. Like there's no way.
Right.
But I didn't want to make it too easy, right? Because then that's not any fun to read, right?
Right.
It's always fun in slasher or predator movies, for that matter, where like the victims end up fucking themselves. Like, you know,
like Colby did. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. And there's there is a thing that I was trying to balance because I think that's so funny. Like there's these tropes that I want to hit. I want to hit those check boxes, but I want to spin them. But there's also predator check boxes I got to hit too. Yeah. So it was like, where was I, how could I blend them in a way that honored both and didn't pull you out, but so that it still felt like a cohesive universe and it still felt like, something that could be in here,
right.
And somebody would go, yeah, like that still feels like a predator story.
I was going to ask if you consider your predator kind of, to make a dark horse correlation, a Bad Blood.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so because his morals are broken.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know 100%, Russ, like whether it's choice or damage.
Right.
And I try to suggest in the story that it's a little bit of damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of like Jason.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
I think so.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that about the Predator that you wrote, because I mean, what you implied basically was that there's this, because there obviously the ghost stories, it goes back, decades, and
he's been there for a while,
and then when they find his ship and like the trophy wall, which he's still collecting, but he seems, it just seems a little bit more unhinged, just like on a killing spree for the sake of killing.
Yeah, I love unhinged is a great word, Ray. That's a great word for it.
Well, I likened it to when we discussed it on the show a bit earlier. I think I likened it to maybe like he's a soldier that doesn't know that the war's kind of ended and he's just still there and he's still hunting. He's still So there's kind of, you've created a really, I think, unique sort of predator in that sense, which made it, not merely is he kind of like a bad blood, so to speak, but there's a situation that he's in that has kind of formed him into what he has become, and I think that's really cool.
You still got sympathy for the Predator.
Yeah, because he's marooned on this world, and he obviously
it's. I know I've been talking a lot, and I'm going to let you guys talk more, but
no, it's okay, Russell.
But like, it's the difference between Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees.
There you go.
Yeah,
they're very similar, but one is a very tragic character, and one is pure evil.
Yep.
So it's
yeah.
There you have to have that.
And there's different connection data, right, about that. So one of them you're afraid of, but it's an appealing character, and you're like, oh man, this guy's a machine.
Yep.
And then the other one, you're like, oh, I kind of feel bad. And again, depending on the version of that story, right, depending on that film, which film it is, it's like, because those things shift. But I think there is something to like it being a vulnerable creature.
Yeah,
I think they're super important in the makeup of that monster.
Yeah, they're not indestructible.
They're not indestructible.
Yeah,
for sure.
So it makes them more intimidating because they're I mean, you can kill them, but you're not going to have the opportunity.
Yeah, there's this thing I remember, like Romero, I think it was George Romero talking about, where it was like the thing with the shambling living dead is that it lulls you into a false sense of security. Right. So if they're running at you, you're boned, right? Yeah. So it's like, and certainly that's very visceral, right? There's still value in that.
But, 28 days later. Yeah,
still great. Definitely. But like for something like this, it's like, you go, okay, if it bleeds, right? Like that's that wonderful twist, right? Or it's like even in Dracula, it's this like, well, we have this one way. If we can do this one thing, maybe we have a shot. And I think what that does is it really pulls you in as an audience.
Yeah, it raises the stakes.
Yeah, so to speak.
The stakes.
Snuck that in there. Josh, do you have any favorites in the Predator franchise? Like any favorite movies, comics, or maybe any of the previous?
Russell loves AVP too.
No, I do not.
Wow, zing!
I can't see it.
He needs the night vision goggles.
I need. Can we turn up the? No, not the sound.
the brightness.
The brightness on my TV.
I will say, just to give Ray a nugget here, I think the Wolf Predator is pretty awesome.
Yes, thank you.
I
agree. But that's about it.
I think it's like, I think I'm like I was saying, I'm a buffet fan guy.
Yeah.
So it's like obviously the first one is amazing and McKiernan is great, but like there's stuff in the brutality of 2 that's great. Like there's stuff in the Predator that I super love. There's moments where I'm like, oh no, I wish I had more of this.
Yeah.
Like give me more of this over here and this over here. But I think the thing that I keep coming back to though is the AVP comic.
I was about to say,
like that's if I had to pick something, I think it'd be that, because the story, I think the story of Broken Tusk and the sheriff, I'm like, that's what I want to see in this. For me, that's the thing that was worth crossing over. Right, because a lot of people like to, bag on the crossovers, and it's like they've been all right, and I think one day we'll see more. But I think that there was a story there, right? Like, and they continued. It had some meat to it. It had some meat to it, and they continued that story for many more series after the fact, because the idea of a human being. I mean, that's one of the things in the Ed Brisson series, the current Marvel one that I think is right on. Is that's what it's doing. It's if you were in this situation, what would your life be like? Right.
Yeah.
So that's what was so cool in that original AVP series was like, okay, if this was going to go down, how would it go down?
Right.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've always, and we brought this up to Ed Brisson, and he hadn't even read the original AVP comics, but I compare Theta to Machiko.
100%.
Like they're kindred spirits for sure.
I think they are. And what's interesting is even if he hadn't read it, Russ, it's just like his story instincts said, I need a character at the core of this who's going to be changed by this experience and then find that they can't leave it. Right? That they are then pulled into this universe of these intergalactic hunters who have rules and who that's what's so cool about it, I think. And I honestly read that thing probably every year.
That's nice. I think because I mean it expands, as you said, it expands the whole kind of mythology of that. I find recently having jumped in like with Russell and Justin, like the novels and the anthologies such as such as Ghost Story. I love it how like we get so many rich characters, so many female predators, and there are like female protagonists, which are really really interesting. I mean, I don't want you to carry any favor towards anyone in particular, but Eyes of the Demon, obviously your story was one of our favorites as well. Are there any standouts for you for any of the other stories or in general? Like I'm currently reading Incursion, the Rage War trilogy. Fantastic. But do you have any favorites?
It's funny you say that because I mean, I like there's the range of stuff in Eyes of the Demon, I think, is the thing that I super love. It's like, if you want something that is in our movie canon. It's like our great editor Brian Schmidt, did a little more Dutch for everybody, like that. Like that's kind of what I was into when I was reading this thing, because I didn't know what all the stories were going to be.
Right.
I had like no idea. So, and I didn't know all of the other talent involved until pretty late in the game. So, like that kind of blew my mind. Number one. But I think Rage War is something that I also come back to with some frequency.
Oh, right.
Because the writing is just amazing, and like the addition to the mythology is like. But again, it's like the characters are great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's like a cast of thousands as well, and Leben manages to kind of keep you having a vested interest in all of them, which is it's quite amazing. Yeah.
And I'm also super obsessed with stuff that's still in that. No offense, Titan. I love stuff that's that mass market size. Like that's my favorite way to read a book, because I can just throw it in my bag.
Yeah.
And I love. I think I'm a particular fan of licensed stuff, because when it's as rich a world as Predator and Alien and some of these other things I've worked on, and Doctor Who, it's like to get a new adventure, like between the pages of that book, always feels like a gift. It always feels like a bonus for Doctor Who. It always feels like a bonus episode, or it's like for Alien and Predator. It's like then it's an extra movie that never got made, or could never be made because it was too expensive, or like had so many wild ideas it's unfilmable. Like I love that. Like I totally love that, and like that's one of my favorite things, is to dip back into that world. And I think it comes from being a kid and picking this up and just being like, what, there's more stories in here?
That
was like
there's more.
Oh my God. And like the fact, certainly there's a nostalgic piece of that, but I think it's really to be able to return to that world that we love so much and find out new things and meet new characters. Like that's so exciting. I never get tired of that. I never get tired of that.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about how Eyes of the Demon came to be? Like, did you submit your story? Did you pitch it? Like, how did that process work?
I have a dear friend, Stacia Deutsch, who also works in the kid space where I do, and a hugely prolific author and kind woman. But she had heard about this call for stories for Predator. And she texted me one day. It was like, do you know anything about Predator? And I'm like, yeah. And so she was kind enough to kind of hook me up with Brian Schmidt. And I pitched like 3 different ideas. I pitched the one we went with. I pitched something called War Crimes, where there's like a street medic and a predator who end up in the middle of a gang war, and so it's like honor, enemy of my enemy kind of thing. And then I also pitched like a thing in the future that was like a Running Man, but they had already kind of done that. So it's like a game. It's like if Predator invaded like Running Man. The
wow.
Movie.
Okay.
Cool. But they had already kind of done that, I guess, a little bit. Jonathan Mayberry, I think, had kind of been in that area before. And so they went with Camp Blood. And so I ended up submitting, it's like a paragraph, like a full paragraph. And then that kind of expanded. And it was a little bit of, hey, can you just clarify this and this and this? And then we were off to the races.
Wow.
And then it was, it was pretty short. Like I needed to, the thing that was cool was Brian was like, look, he's like, let's go with this one. He's like, I don't think anyone else is going to submit anything like this. And I was just like, so relieved. And then I'm like, oh my God. And then it was like me going, okay, Josh, like you've got the green light. Now what are you going to do? So it was about me going, yeah, I want to start with a ghost story. And I want to start, it used to be called Camp Blood, and we changed the title. I at that point, I don't think My Heart is a Chainsaw had even come out. And so it's like, I didn't want to, I found out after the fact that like Stephen Graham Jones had, referenced Camp Blood in his story. And I was like, oh shoot, like I don't want to, step on that at all. But then it was about me going, okay, now let me build these characters. Let me build these graduate students. I need people to die. Who's going to die? And can I make them funny or interesting before that happens?
Yeah.
Because
Did you have
a thing. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Josh. Did you have because it being such a different format, like the short story anthology, did you have a limit that you had to kind of limit the story, the page numbers to?
Yeah, I think it ended up being like it's got to be under like 30 pages, roughly. There was a word count that escapes me, but yeah, there was like a sweet spot.
Yeah,
where they wanted us to be.
Yeah, I mean as a writer again, it's just interesting to know the craft. That must be a challenge doing something that's so kind of compact.
Well, I think one of the first things I did is like I did a little bit of research on like, okay, how many words is this really? Okay, that's about 30 pages. Okay, so it's like 10 pages an act, more or less. Okay. So it was me kind of using my TV experience and trying to kind of apply that in a way that I would help me kind of, okay, this is a short story, and it's like in media res. I need to get in. They're already at the campsite, right? Things are already happening. That dude has already probably disappeared, right? So it's it's Shaun of the Dead, right? Skip to the end, like get into it. And I think that one wonderful thing about short stories is that you're just leaving in all the good parts.
Yes,
you cut out all the boring stuff. And so I didn't have to do a whole lot of editing. Brian worked with me. And the team at Titan for continuity and universe, they had a couple of thoughts, but not much, thank God. So I felt validated by that. But yeah, it was just like, oh, let me clarify here and there. But, let me make sure that she's going to get to this point, and this is the ending I have in mind. So let me build back from that. Yeah. And there's a little bit of mapping, certainly, that goes through that process where you're just trying to go, like, I want this to be exciting, and then we need to slow down. And okay, if this is a slasher, we're going to cut away and they're going to start making out. I'm just like, I'm going right. The back of my head is going, okay, this part of the VCR, like, okay, this, right?
Right. Turn the tracking on.
Yeah, like that's what it is. Okay, that part on Fast Times, it's always messed up on the VHS.
Yeah, right.
And so again, in tracking those check boxes. And just being like, this has got to happen, and this has got to happen. Okay, he's like that first, scare with the deer head. It's like cool, and there needs to be something that's like a fake out. That's classic. I need to do that. We need to see how the missiles work, right? In this version, right? Yeah. In this era. We need to see those. How would you describe, again, part of the challenge too in that world of, if I'm writing for this room, how do I describe this stuff in a way that you're going to go, okay, I get it. He's invisible. Fine. But how, like we know the rules. So how do I describe it, hopefully in a way that's interesting to someone who's never seen it before, which is our characters.
Right.
But doesn't bore you guys to tears. So that was like, and I was trying to come at this with the eyes of a fan demon, like that. I was just like, I needed to be a little bit hard on myself.
Yeah.
So it was like, I was really enjoying those moments where she's looking up at him and going, "What is happening? Like, why does that look like that?" Like trying to describe something that is ostensibly a special effect in a way that's coming out of the head of someone who's in the scene, right? Like if you looked at that and it was peeling off in front of you, like what would that, how would you describe that to yourself? It would have to be this much surreal, right? So once I started thinking about it and tried to be in the character's head, I was like, this is what this has to sound like. This is what that has to, like, if I'm going to try and write the reality of that moment, I think that's the fun and the challenge of working in licensed fiction is you're making old things fresh again, but not too damn fresh. Because you don't want to alienate the people who actually bought it, but you also still want to make it fun,
Yeah, no, that's great. That's fantastic. I mean, we were going to kind of wrap up with our discussion of Ghost Story, but we've gone straight into that already. We've kind of gathered our thoughts about it. So I guess I just wanted to ask just a few, questions. When you did Ghost Story, first of all, having that storyboard background, do you storyboard your stories at all still, or is that a separate discipline?
I did do some sketches. There were a couple of things that, like, I wish I had access to them today, but there were definitely a couple things about, like, oh, this is something I wanted to see. There was definitely a visual checklist of like him standing over her and the thing with the bike. Those were like, I tend to think visually.
I love the bike thing. Yeah.
The bike scene
awesome.
was great.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So what I try to think really visually, and actually the irony was that was like one of the first notes Brian gave me. I was being a little bit too lean. So screenwriting kind of teaches you like to be real lean and efficient with your descriptions. And Brian was like, "Hey man, like this is a short story, so like let's get into it. Like let's get our hands dirty here a little bit." And so I definitely took my time on that second and third pass. But yeah, there are absolute visuals where I was like, I want to see that. I want to see the fireworks. Like I have that moment with her in the final cabin. Like the way that the predator starts skinning, Colby. Like those are things that I had like in my head. I was like, this has to be like this. And I was like choreographing it. I was like, so there were absolutely like him coming out of the dark in the fire, like that transition from the ghost story to them and how that was all going to play out. Like I definitely started with images.
That's so cool. It's good it'll be fun to reread it and know those cues then. Like, when I reread it again, get to the description, okay, so you had this visual in mind. It's really cool. Yeah.
For sure, man. Like, and I think that's, and again, from the standpoint of being a fan first, it's like, what do I want to see?
Right.
Like, oh, cool. They see the glare off the ship and then they have to go there. Like how do I, and this is something I try to think about a lot is the withholding kind of information. Like we're talking about for Predator, it's like there's so much we don't know. So then the stuff we do know ends up being more important. So those clues that I wanted to lay, right? So I was like, oh yeah, like if they look at the sediment and they have a sense of how deep it is, that's going to, because they're graduate students in this area, that's going to add a specific clue and mystique to that predator. Like if I made them somebody else, I would have to find a different way in, right?
They'd never figure out some
stuff.
It
would never happen. So I was like, oh, that could be unique, right? Finding this thing half buried. Like I was like, oh, this could be cool. And really just like the thing I kept coming back to was like how to spin up that final girl cliche. At what point am I going to let everybody know that she knows and that she's doing this intentionally, and how to time engage that so that she doesn't seem ruthless, but is trying to survive so that we're not mad at her. But she's clearly doing something smart.
Right. Yeah, that's a tough balance between ruthlessness and survival. And in an instance like that, you have to make some tough decisions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, just I guess, guys, Russell and Justin, if you have any other scenes or favorite moments of Ghost Story, I just wanted to say again from our original discussion, I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that I asked Justin this, and it's like, do campers go out and there are hunters that hunt? Because sounds very dangerous. And Justin's going, yeah, they do. Like that's for me, like coming from Australia where, guns aren't prominent at all. That is a scary notion already. Like, I would not want to camp anywhere where
if you don't know the area well, don't
know the area. Your hunters with guns and alcohol and testosterone in their blood. That's scary.
Always a volatile combination.
But I don't know, Justin. Any other scenes from? Geez, that Colby scene. There's so many cool scenes.
Definitely the scene with Colby was the one that stuck out in my mind, where he was still alive as he was being skinned. It's a great horror movie scene. I loved it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and I was like, you got to have that marquee thing at the end.
Well, I just love. I mean, of course, the Colby scene's great, but I just like you have that classic final girl battle. Where he just won't die, but he keeps coming. But she's not going to take any shit off of him either.
No way, man.
I did have a couple of last minute quick questions before I can let before I let the others take off. But
Yeah.
these have nothing to do with anything really, just random. First of all, we talked about the Predator crossovers, of course, with Alien, and back in the day they did the DC ones with Batman,
Oh
Superman.
yeah, which is
now,
amazing. Yeah,
now that Predator's with Marvel,
yeah.
what character do you most want to see the Predator go up against from Marvel?
Oh, nice one.
Ooh, I have two.
Ooh.
I would want Ghost Rider.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
Because you could get
Yeah.
you could get in, and I want Mark Texeira to draw it.
Yes.
From the 90s.
Yeah.
But you could get into a really cool place where it's like you've got these guys who have a code, and then you've got Ghost Rider who has a code, and that overlaps in a really dirty, ugly way.
Yeah.
And the, like, so I'm super into that. And then the other one would be X-Men.
Oh,
Because I think obviously Wolvie getting into it with
Wolvie
the
would be
Oucha is the way to go.
Yeah.
But like they've been in space. I think they literally are living on the moon right now.
yeah.
So like it wouldn't be that big of a stretch.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a real fun one.
Yeah.
Both of those would be great.
Archie's fun too. But I think in Marvel, that's what I would want to see. Yeah.
And everyone asks Doctor Who fans who their favorite Doctor is. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask who your favorite Master is.
Ooh, okay.
Great question. I think. Okay, I love them all. I think Missy might be my favorite.
Missy's great.
Yeah, Missy's so good. Yeah.
Because Missy felt like that to me felt like the first time where I went. They really are connected, and this is really hard for both of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was just like, there's a moment in I think the Doctor Falls, the Peter Capaldi, and like where he's appealing to her, and there's this moment where he almost has her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
And then he goes one step too far, and that was it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is Michelle Gomez's performance. Obviously, the writing, directing is extraordinary. But there's this moment where I go, oh, yeah, there's 50 years of that relationship, 40 years. Because we don't see him till Pertwee era. But like, man. Yeah. What about you, man? Who's your favorite Master?
I started with the New Who, so John Sim was my first Master, and I loved him. But when I went back, I still think Roger Delgado is the best.
He's so good.
He's my favorite too.
And he's gone way too soon.
He is gone too soon, and he does occupy that Moriarty role like kind of perfectly.
Yeah,
and like has all the same pompousness that the Doctor has, which seems right.
Yeah, but I also I also really love the Keeper of Traken, like mangled Emperor Palpatine Master. Too,
I love Zombie Master.
Yeah.
Come on,
Skeletor Master.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's all I got.
No worries.
Thanks, Russ.
Justin, any other final?
Just another Doctor Who question. It must have been such a treat to hear Colin Baker and Bonnie Langford reading the dialogue that you had written. That must have been so cool. Do you have any other Big Finish stories on the horizon for the future? Or
TBD spoilers.
Oh, okay.
I might be working on one right now. But it is my fondest wish that it's something that I continue to do.
Nice.
I had such an extraordinary experience with Jack Rayner and my story editor Rob Valentine and director Helen Goldwyn. They were just amazing, and I got to meet Colin and Bonnie at Gallifrey 1 a couple weeks ago, and they remembered the story. and so I had to I got a photo with the both of them. I got them to sign my script. It was just an extraordinary moment and a super wild journey. But I mean, I want to do it for the rest of my life. I mean, I love that show so much.
That's one of my dreams too, is to submit a Big Finish script. I've been working on one for a little while about involving the Routons from the Horror of Fang Rock, which was one of my favorites. So
well, they do that wonderful competition every year.
Oh,
and like,
yeah, that's
and
right.
for the record, like I submitted to that 3 times. I submitted to that 3 times, and then I submitted for a Bernie open call too. So and like,
nice.
and all of that really, by the time I had an opportunity, like I was ready again. Right? We were talking about that tonight.
Yeah.
Like I had written all these other pitches, so I was like, and I was listening to what they do, and I was like, I think this would work. You know?
Yeah. That's
I think the question is, do you have a Doctor Who Predator pitch? That's
make it happen.
That would be so rad.
Yeah.
There are definite crossovers that I'm dreaming about these days. I will say that. I will say that much.
Nice. I mean, it's probably a silly question, but you know, would you jump at another opportunity to write more Predator? Or,
in a heartbeat.
Aliens? Yeah, awesome.
In a heartbeat. I did have a chance to kind of pitch a little bit in the Alien universe, and I'm going to try to circle back on that. So
awesome.
Yeah, mandibles and inner mouths crossed. That can make that happen. But yeah, like in a heartbeat. I'd love to work with Brian again. And you know, like being in that universe at all, being a part of it at all, is just like beyond a dream come true. It's like it's abstract, right? Like it's just like Josh, you got to write a Predator story. What are you talking about?
Right. And is that a little bit more freeing than writing for, say, Doctor Who? Like, I feel like it would be really intimidating to write for like Star Wars because they're so particular about their canon. Whereas like, so is Predator a little bit more lenient on the canon aspect of the?
You know, that's a great question, Russ. Like, they definitely were double checking that I was crossing my T's and dotting my I's.
Okay.
And you know, there are a couple of fans out there who consult for Titan, and just to make sure that everything's what it should be. I was lucky that I wasn't in an area, like if I was doing some stuff in space, I think there would be some more issues probably.
Okay.
But I think that, I think mostly it comes down to how hard I am on myself. So just like with the Doctor Who thing, it's just like, if I pick this up and I read it, would I be into it?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
That's the best, for me, that's the real standard, you know?
Yeah, that's the best gauge, isn't it? I mean, that's the best way that you can do it. Like, if you enjoy it and you know you're a fan, if it works for you, then chances are it will work for like 1,000 others out there.
That's the hope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're hoping to get as well. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get Brian Thomas Schmidt on the show as well. And
wonderful!
I want to ask him to please put out more anthologies because they're just so much fun.
We have
Russell,
so much fun reading this,
and we all want to submit a story. That's right.
We do. Yes, we do.
Yeah, me too. Yes.
Yes. And we talked about as well. You know, would love to see. Like an animated, like something where we can get more of the world, but
that's
maybe
a great
like an animated short
that's
series.
A great idea.
Russell.
I had brought up that I would love to see Predator by Gendy Tarkovsky.
Yeah, man. How cool would that be?
Samurai Jack style. That would just be
great.
Well, like if you approached it like Love, Death, and Robots or like Star Wars Visions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Where it's like you're doing one-off stories. I mean, the thing that's interesting to me is like there's some fans, and it's like we're not gatekeeper guys here in this room. But like there's some fans who didn't know about the Dark Horse stuff. And so it's similar to when I'm trying to turn people on to Big Finish, where like they didn't know. And so there's like worlds yet to conquer, worlds yet to discover.
Right.
And so I think that the fun about Prey, and like coming full circle, because I fucking adored that movie, is that it dips its toe into something that fans have actually been enjoying for 20 plus years at this point. Of like, yeah, man, you can tell this story in any scenario with almost any set of characters. That's how flexible this world is. That's how flexible this monster is, because it's a character.
Yeah,
like there's room here to play, and I think Prey just proved that. I mean, you know, it's like if you've been reading this stuff since the 80s and early 90s, it's like, like we've gone to drive-ins before.
Yeah.
Like we're, like, and frankly, it's like
the Predator fought a bear.
It's like seeing like Stan Sakai do a Predator cover. Like the world, gentlemen, the world we're living in right now.
Sky's
how
the
freaking
limit.
awesome is that? And I think an animated approach for that, for Alien, yes, like it's something that I feel like is obvious. Like let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to test the waters as well, rather than invest in, I guess, like a whole film, which I'm assuming would be a lot more riskier. I don't know. I don't work in the industry, but I thought, maybe like a short series, just test it, see how it goes. I mean, because again, from all intents, what we've seen with the anthology, and it's not the first anthology as well. There are other Predator anthologies as well. It's good, it's great. So let's see it. Josh, a huge thank you for your time. It's been
my pleasure. I love
chatting with you. Yeah.
Really
and happy to come back.
All right.
Absolutely.
Happy to come back, gents. Like
definitely.
Like we get into the weeds on AVB2, whatever you want.
Yes.
We just started covering the Dark Horse stuff, actually. They just all that in
I would be happy to chat about that, by the way. So.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. We've just kicked off. We did Concrete Jungle. So
yes, I saw that.
We should have him on for Cold War.
God's about to say.
Right on.
Some people like it. I don't.
Right on. Hey, there's plenty to discuss.
Yeah,
exactly. But before we go, Josh, any final plugs or shout outs that you'd like to make to let our fair listeners know?
Oh yeah, thanks, Ray. I think for folks out there who are parents, I've got The Last Comics on Earth coming out April 25th. Graphic novel, fun for the whole family.
Nice.
And yeah, that's a like spin-off of the Last Kids on Earth series that'll be out in April. Hamster and Gretel animated series on Disney Channel. If folks want to check that out, where I'm a writer on that show, and just sold a new book at the end of the year. It'll be a couple years, so when that circles back around, we can talk about that one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly hoping that I have more opportunities in this space for sure. And we'll be pursuing that and be keeping you guys posted. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at Zombie TARDIS. If anyone wants to see me talk about, Don Coscarelli movies and horror and all the stuff I'm reading.
Yeah. No, listeners, please go check out. We'll put everything in the show notes for your ease of access. And yeah, please approach Josh. He's very approachable. As you can tell, loves to chat about the stuff that we love. So once again, Josh, a huge thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
Thank you guys so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
No worries. You can find us, not Looney. What am I saying? Let me
Wrong
stop there.
show.
You can find
Wrong show.
You can find us, HOTU Clan members, and contact us as well. Let us know what you think about this chat as well. If you can't reach Josh, happy to grab your messages too. predpraypod@outlook.com. We're also, I can't read Yochin, Josh, so I've forgotten what all the other things are there. But Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the handle is @predpraypod. And I do know on YouTube, they've made things easier. youtube.com/@predpraypod as well. Boys, any other final thoughts before we let Josh go into Camp Blood?
If you want to donate to help us get that intro from Gary Busey,
oh yes,
please do it.
Gold coin donation. That's all we need.
Yes, we're gonna start a GoFundMe to get that intro from Gary.
I'm gonna have to donate for that because I want to see that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, once again, thanks, Josh, and everyone. We do have a sign off, of course.
Of course.
Oh yes. Don't forget.
Who wants to say it?
You go ahead, Russell.
Shit happens.
See you later.
See you, everyone.